crazy stuff coming out of Pokemon Go right now because there's just a lot of underlying discussion waiting for Johto. You know, Johto is kind of maybe just around the corner somewhat. That we know it's confirmed. All the generations are anticipated to be put into Pokemon Go in the future. We just don't really have too much of a time frame, and Niantic just wanted to introduce the first generation first to make it a nice, easy way for everyone to get involved into the game. Also, there's other features like trading, PvP, potentially breeding that are looked into being put into the game really soon. So a lot of discussion is really on right now. Like, Johto is something that will bring Pokemon Go back into the light, at least for a little bit. You know, a lot of players are leaving Pokemon Go, not because it's a bad game, but it just doesn't have a lot of features that if you just crush it and you grind out and you do all the work possible, you're going to realize that there's not really too much left to do, that the battles start getting repetitive for the gyms, and that it's just the same grind over and over. So at least introducing more Pokemon, having trade dynamics and other things that could happen, as well as fixing the glitches. Yes, that is a big part of it. As long as, like, there's a lot of big updates and the game starts coming together a bit more seamlessly, a lot more people will be involved, which is why I'm really excited to see posts like this. Like, this was a very creative thought, and a lot of effort went into actually just, you know, putting the Pokemon into the list. So Pokemon Go egg distribution is based off the main series handheld game Egg Steps, except for the starters. Here's what Gen 2 will likely be like. I mean, that's just great. You take the first stage evolutions of all the Pokemon, you break them down by their egg groups, and there's a lot of discussion here, but it does kind of work out. So I went on to the Pokemon Bulbapedia list for egg cycles. Pretty much you can click on cycles, and yeah, legendary Pokemon are untouchable, but after that we start to get into a nice little range of Pokemon that you can find via the egg cycles, and it looks like egg cycles 5 through 15 and slightly into 20 are going to be 3-kilometer eggs. So right here we have like Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, so we have the starters and Pikachu, but at the same time we also have it to where like Pokemon like Ekans, Sandshrew, Vulpix and stuff, they're going to be in the 5-kilometer eggs as well. So yeah, Nidorans, Vulpix, Sandshrew, Ekans, that's 5. So for the most part, just 10, 15, those are where you're going to find these more basic Pokemon, and because of that you can kind of go through Bulbapedia and compile a list, and that's what this person did, which is really awesome to see. So let's go and zoom in a bit and break it down just a bit more, because I like the idea here that if you think about it, the baby Pokemon are going to make it easier to get rare Pokemon in a way, or at least not rare Pokemon, but you know, a little bit better chance of getting Pikachus, a little bit better chance of getting Wigglytuff and Clefable, and even though they're not the strongest Pokemon in the game, hatching those and being able to fill out your Pokedex might work out really well. We also have starter access and all kinds of fun stuff. Who knows how they're going to introduce the starters? Like, that'd be cool if every time there's a new generation, you just get to pick a free starter from that generation. And as we get into the 5-kilometer eggs, it's going to get really, I don't want to say weird, but it's going to start getting interesting because there's Pokemon that kind of start meshing between generations. Like, how's the Sneasel going to work into 4th generation when we get the Weavile? How's all this going to work out when we get other evolutions in Pokemon like this? Like, look at the 10-kilometer eggs. So if we compare the 10-kilometer eggs, it's roughly the same because we have Pokemon like Electabuzz, Magmar, Jinx, and now we can get the baby Pokemon in 10-kilometer eggs as well. So hopefully it won't take too many candies to evolve these Pokemon. Also same with like Tyrogue and stuff, that we'll be able to get the stronger, like more late game Pokemon based off like the higher eggs and the rarer catch rates and stuff. But it's going to hopefully be not too bad. Like, hopefully you won't need like to hatch 10 Eleckids, or maybe you can find some more Eleckids, hatch one, get the Electabuzz in a shorter time than it normally takes to get Electabuzz through breeding. But at the same time, if you're thinking about it, this is a lot of eggs. They would need to revamp the egg system in some way, maybe for every generation give another egg hatching device, maybe upgrade it to 5 hatches before one breaks. I think there's a lot of things that can be done to make it a bit more seamless, because if you think about the main series Pokemon games, it's a lot of breeding, it's a lot of egg hatching. I feel it should be just as viable, if not slightly more viable, to be hatching eggs than catching Pokemon in the wild, because that would help with like the going up and getting around and like the Pokemon Go side of being active. We can also see in like the 5-kilometer eggs, now we get a lot of, I wouldn't say basic Pokemon, but a lot of like straightforward Pokemon that you either see get really powerful evolutions, or they just do cool things in Johto. Like, we can go into the Xatu, Yanmega won't be out there yet. Wobbuffet seems like it's just a pretty durable Pokemon as well. Go into the Houndoom, go into the Donphan. So there's like a mix of first stage Pokemon that we're going to have to sit on for a while, and Pokemon that can evolve into maybe very strong Pokemon. And I think Tyranitar definitely going to be one of the big ones. Fourth generation is going to be really weird as well, because then we're going to have like pre-evolutions that will be introduced on top of the already existing evolutions once again. So it's looking to take a really interesting turn, and I think that that's actually something to consider. You know, the eggs, we can anticipate on this. You can maybe plan your evolutions, plan your future generations on how the eggs are going to hatch, and maybe if there are some good breeding updates, or maybe not even just straight up breeding updates, but just egg hatching updates that make it better for the quality of life, this will become a lot more viable as more Pokemon get introduced, and we're going to have like a crazy mess of eggs. Like, people already have more eggs than they know what to do with, and this is just going to make it worse with more Pokemon that you could potentially be hatching and stuff. And then if you scroll down, you know, someone compiled a text list of all of the things, unless I already skipped it, it was more at the top. I believe it was at the top. All right, load more comments. Here we go. So please note that this is all number crunching and assumption. I'm not familiar with the legendaries and a few other later ones that have lower egg cycles. So yeah, the lower egg cycles kind of throw it off as we get like deeper into this, but roughly anything from like 20 to, wow, that is a lot. Hopefully that didn't like look really bad. Probably 40 is when we're starting to get into rare Pokemon. Like, there's your Lapras, there's your Chansey, there's all these other Pokemon, and then the Eevee and stuff is just like a little lower than that. So pretty much, you know, plan wisely. Actually, with the Eevee and the Omanyte, that does drop down into 30? All right, so we have like 35, 40. All right, 35 seems like to be the fringe on Eevee, and then not really too much else. Maybe the Aron might be a 10-kilometer egg group, but then these are other Pokemon you can expect. The 5th generation, it's going to be wild, because we're going to have some very powerful Pokemon being introduced, and the balance right there is going to start getting crazy. Also look forward to like Salamence, Metagross. It's going to be crazy. And then we can see right here, Gen 2, 2K, like this list right here is nice, because as the generations and what to expect based off of all this, like let's go into Gen 3, we have Trico, Torchic, Mudkip, Poochyena, Zigzagoon, Wurmple, Lotad, Seedot. Actually, this doesn't just give insight to Pokemon Go, this just gives insight to the Pokemon games, that the weaker, earlier on Pokemon are in those lower egg groups, and then you can see it tiered out. Like, yeah, these are all Butterfree, not Butterfree, but you know, Pidgey, Caterpie, Weedle, all these Pokemon we find early on in the adventure, and they're not super loaded with base stats, but as we get into the later game, it's more exclusive, more rare Pokemon, and those are found in the 10Ks and even some of the 5Ks. So the Gen 3 is looking to really amp up, you know, Numel, Torkoal, Spoink, Spinda, as you get into that, and then we have like Chimecho on the 10K. That's interesting, but it was like a super duper rare Pokemon back in the 3rd generation, like 5% encounter rate, maybe like a 3 or 1% encounter rate. I remember trying to get one because I was a huge fan of Chimecho back in the day, like 10 years ago, and it's a very hard Pokemon to get. But then we can also see Shuppet, Duskull, so as those evolutions start going along, it'll be really nice. Gen 3 legendaries, Regirock, Regice, Registeel, Latios, Latios, all those. Yeah, the 2K eggs on the 4th gen. So it seems like the 2K eggs aren't going to be too overwhelming. Maybe the 10K eggs might start getting overwhelming because you start getting into more powerful Pokemon, but the 5K eggs are going to be ridiculous. So that's something to consider. Like, as we saw right here, we just scrolled forever and ever on these like 20 egg cycle Pokemon, which is the majority of the game. So I'm wondering if they might even break it up even more, like 2, 4, 6, 10. I think that would even be a little better and slightly more manageable. Also, it does kind of break up some of the things between like 20 and 25, 30s. But at the same time, it's still a lot of 20s. Like, it's hard to decide where you just arbitrarily draw the line for power and egg hatching. Things to consider. Yeah, so hopefully okay. Unfortunately, Niantic right now, even though I'm trying to root for them, I'm trying to give them all the support possible to really make their game work. You know, they're doing as good as they can, trying to shut down the botting and spoofing, all stuff like that. Sure, some innocent players are getting hit, but it's a computer trying to deem what's cheating and what isn't, so it's not going to be perfect. Also, they're working tirelessly. They're trying to get their game going, but at the same time, they make mistakes that are just almost unforgivable. Hopefully, going off of their track record, they're not going to screw this up too much. Like, yeah, once you start overloading the eggs, once you start putting more of a potential paywall behind hatching all these eggs that you're receiving, or just incorporating the Pokemon poorly, hopefully not. So there is a lot of things to be careful with. Pre-evolutions don't remove the normal first evolutions from eggs. Pre-evolutions only hatch from eggs when parents were holding special items. So that was something about concern when it came to baby Pokemon. That's in the original games. There's no telling what direction Niantic will go. I mean, we don't have elemental stones to affect what Eevee we get or other items from the future games. I don't think it's going to be that bad. Like, I don't think they're going to get that heavy into it. Like, as we already saw with the Eevees, you just throw candies at it and then Pokemon will evolve. But also, just for a last little bit of fun right here, we do have a full-on list of all the Pokemon and the egg groups and a nice visual thing. So, like I said earlier, plan ahead. Oh my goodness, the 5 kilometer for black and white is going to be an absolute mess. But plan ahead. You know, if there's Pokemon that you think you're going to want, it might be kind of worth it now to just anticipate what it's going to be. Yeah, so 6th generation's not going to be bad. 5th generation's going to be kind of bad. 3rd, a little overloaded, especially with those 2 kilometer eggs. It's going to be interesting for sure. I wonder how they're going to do Smeargle as well. Like, Smeargle could be a really neat Pokemon. I feel like some Pokemon that are going to be absurdly powerful, the Miltank, they might overload stats into it and turn into something like a Snorlax. I saw people worried about the slacking. Like, look at this. It's going to be a 2 kilometer egg on the slacking. Yo, you get like a Vigoroth and then you hatch some Slackoth. Then you get like slacking, which will probably be like Snorlax, which might be one of the strongest Pokemon. We don't see like too much ability integration, so you just might load this thing down with raw stats, and that would be pretty crazy. 4th generation looks pretty manageable as well. So I think that it can be done in a good way, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it turns out. So I hope you guys enjoyed like all these graphics and stuff. We got gold, silver, and just this one right there, talking about all of the egg groups and all of the crazy things that could be coming along in Pokemon Go. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.